How to start journaling for beginners. If you've ever wanted to journal but struggled to figure out how to actually start, then you're in the right place. Today, I'm going to walk you through why journaling actually matters and the 4 simple tips to make journaling easy and fun. We're going to get through a lot in this video, so if that sounds useful, hit like so I know to make more content like this. Let's get started. I wanted to begin by walking you through one of the most important pieces of research into journaling because it blew my mind when I heard this. In the 1980s, a psychologist named James Pennebaker spent time with FBI and CIA polygraphers. You know, the people who run lie detector tests. And during late night conversations, they kept telling him the same strange story. When they questioned people, the polygraph would show intense psychological stress. But the moment they broke down and confessed to something they'd been hiding, the polygraph showed that they'd become extraordinarily relaxed. Not anxious about the consequences they're about to face, but relaxed. Polygraph after polygraph, they had noticed the same thing, even facing serious consequences. People felt physically liberated the moment they stopped hiding things in. The observation stuck with Pennebaker, so he ran an experiment to test out a theory. He took a group of healthy college students and split them into 2 groups. One group wrote about a genuinely difficult experience from their life for 15 minutes a day, 4 days in a row. The other group wrote about something completely trivial for the same amount of time. Then he tracked how often each group visited the student health centre over the following 6 months. He discovered that the group who had written about their difficult experience went to the doctor significantly less than the group who wrote about nothing meaningful at all. Just 4 days, 15 minutes a day, and it changed how often their bodies got sick over the next 6 months. Not just how they felt, but how their bodies actually functioned. Now, that was in 1986, and since then the experiment has been repeated in over 100 studies and the finding holds. So let's talk about what this actually means for you. Because journaling gives you real benefits on a few different levels. The first benefit mirrors that moment on the polygraph almost exactly. The instant someone stops holding something in, their body relaxes. That's the immediate benefit. After even one honest entry, people tend to feel more clarity, less mental clutter, calmer and more grounded. Same mechanism, just voluntary and much smaller in scale. You don't need a dramatic confession, you just need one honest sentence about your day. The second benefit is where it gets more interesting, because it's really about what happens to the people who don't do this. Pennebaker's broader research found that the people who habitually hold things in rather than processing them tend to become more reactive, more impulsive, and slower to recover when things go wrong. Regular reflection gives you the opposite: fewer impulse reactions, faster recovery from setbacks, decisions that actually align with what you value instead of what is just easiest in the moment. It's essentially a small voluntary version of that same release, happening every single day instead of building up over time. And then there's the third benefit, which is actually the deepest one. Reflection eventually helps you answer questions about yourself that most people never sit still long enough to ask. Who am I becoming? What actually matters to me? Am I living the life I want to, or the life I've just defaulted into? Over time, people who reflect consistently develop a stronger and clearer sense of who they actually are, simply because they've stopped carrying everything silently and started actually processing it. There are currently 2 ways to journal. You can either write your thoughts down or speak them out loud, what we like to call conversational journaling. Written journaling is the version most of us have heard of. This is where you get a notebook and a pen and some quiet time to sit down and put your thoughts onto a page. For some people, this genuinely works. There's something about the slowness of writing by hand that forces you to sit with a thought properly rather than rushing past it. Then there's a second way, which is called conversational journaling or voice journaling. Instead of writing anything down, you simply talk out loud the way you'd speak to a friend, letting your thoughts unfold naturally as you say them rather than trying to construct them sentence by sentence onto a page. Most people are familiar with the written form of journaling, but actually conversational journaling might be better for you, and here is why. Writing by hand, you can process about 20 to 30 words a minute. Speaking increases that to 120 to 150 words a minute. That's the difference between working through one thought in 5 minutes and getting through 5 thoughts in the same 5 minutes, allowing you to process more thoughts quicker. That's actually why we built Just Journal. We wanted reflection to feel like a conversation, not homework. You talk naturally about whatever's on your mind and it's transformed into a beautifully written journal entry for you. Neither method is more correct. They're just 2 different doors into the same room. But if writing has always felt like effort, if you've sat in front of a blank page and watched your thoughts disappear before you could even get them down, speaking is very likely going to feel like a relief. Let's now talk about how to actually start journaling, because I think most people who try journaling and quit don't fail because reflection doesn't work. They fail because they weren't taught how to do it properly. The first tip is to start smaller than you think you should. 1 sentence or 2 a day is enough at the start. The goal at the beginning isn't to produce something profound, it's just to show up and to begin building a habit. Unfortunately, most people try to go too deep on their first attempt, and this leads them to get frustrated and give up as it's too much of an effort. The goal is to build consistency at the start. As you develop the habit of journaling every day, then you will naturally start to go on deeper. Trying to do too much too soon is generally the single biggest reason beginners quit in the first week. The second tip is to pick a trigger that reminds you to journal. So let me explain. To be successful, you need to anchor the journaling habit to something you already do every single day. So for example, after your morning coffee, after you brush your teeth, on your commute to work, or even when you walk your dog. The simplest way is to simply set a daily alarm on your phone for a certain time to remind you to journal. The trigger does the remembering for you, so your motivation doesn't have to. The third tip is to remove every friction point that could stop you from journaling. This means that you need to make it as easy as possible for you to start your journaling and remove any blockers. For example, keep the journaling notebook on a table by your bed rather than tucked away in a cluttered drawer where you might struggle to find it. Rather than doom scrolling, have your journaling app open so you can use it easily. Set a recurring reminder on your phone, and then the less effort it takes to start, the more likely you'll actually be to follow it through on a random Tuesday when you're feeling tired or just don't feel like it. This is actually one of the main reasons we built Just Journal. With traditional journaling, there are so many small points of friction. You've got to find your notebook and you've got to find a pen and finding somewhere to sit down and actually write. What if you get the inspiration to journal whilst going on a walk? Writing and walking at the same time is not recommended. Any of those steps is enough to talk yourself out of journaling. Let me actually show you how it works because it's generally this simple. I'm going to go to justjournal.io, click the Start Journal session and just talk. I'm in the middle of recording a video on how to start journaling for beginners, and I'm genuinely excited to show people how easy this is because I think it's the reason more people will actually stick with it. And that's it. I click the End Session button and within a couple of seconds, the written entry is sitting there waiting for me. No writing required. You can do this on a walk, whilst doing the dishes, while getting ready for bed, wherever you happen to be when the thought crosses your mind. There's also a feature I think is generally useful once you've built up a few entries. You can search and query your journal entries. So you could ask something like, tell me all the times I was happy this year, and it pulls together a summary along with links to specific entries of your happy memories. That kind of insight is really hard to find from a physical notebook once you've filled out a few of them. If you want to give it a try, there's a 14-day free trial at justjournal.io. I'm generally confident that journaling this way will help you stick with it far more consistently than writing ever did. All right, let's move on to the final tip you can use to build your journaling habit. The final tip is to not aim for perfection. Nobody is reading this journal but you. Remember that aim of journaling is not to impress anyone, but to process your thoughts and help you reflect on your life so you can become a better person. So let's quickly bring all this in together. Reflection matters because it does something measurable. Penn Baker's research showed that people who regularly process what's on their mind rather than holding it in tend to feel better and get ill less often. From there, it builds. First, more clarity and calm, then over time, better decisions, faster recovery, and fewer setbacks. And eventually, a much clearer sense of who you actually are. There are two ways to get there, writing or speaking. Neither is more correct. But if writing has always felt like effort, speaking is very much likely going to give you a relief. Whichever you choose, start small and attach the habit to something you already do every single day. Remove every bit of friction you can find and don't aim for perfection. Aim for honesty. If you're not sure what to say, here are some simple prompts to get you started. You can talk about what's been on your mind today, what made today memorable, what challenged you, or what you're grateful for. Pick one and answer it in a single sentence. Don't forget to include how whatever you said made you feel, as this will help you to reflect better on your day. And if you want me to go deeper on any specific journaling methods next, gratitude journaling, morning pages, whatever it is, drop it in the comments and I'll make a video on it. On this channel, we want to help 1 million people live more intentionally through reflection. Make sure you subscribe because in our next video, we're going to discuss something quite controversial. The fact that journaling has a huge accessibility problem that nobody is talking about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.